The Lord of the Rings. Live action, Peter Jackson versus the Ralph Bakshi animated film from way back. It's going to take a look, do some comparisons, have a fun conversation. Let's go and dig in.
Welcome back to AsArt with Nick and John. We post 3 videos a week. Hit that subscribe button to stay updated. And for all of our links to our podcasts and other content, go to asart.space. John, there's some funky walk cycles.
So before we get going, had you seen this before?
A long time ago.
Okay.
I watched it when I watched The Hobbit when I was a kid.
Oh wow. Okay. So just some backstory, not having to do with this video, but The Hobbit. Not The Lord of the Rings, but The Hobbit is probably my co-favorite animated film ever. Lord of the Rings definitely is a different beast. Like it gets, you can tell this is done during drug craze. I mean, there is some mushroom, I don't know, there is some weird stuff going on for sure. That being said, it has a really distinct, cool style. And the first thing I want to start off with before we even get into it is one of my favorite things in films is cool silhouettes. Mm-hmm. And Bram Stoker's Dracula, I think it's 1995, 96, somewhere around there. The Francis Ford Coppola directed it. In the opening, they do all silhouettes, and it almost looks exactly like this Lord of the Rings animated film. And I actually did a very similar thing in my thesis project for because I wanted to have a backstory and I wanted to have a cool visual style. So I did Bram Stoker's Dracula, but looking at this Lord of the Rings film, I'm like, oh, this is very much like that. So anyway, just that from the get-go, I thought that was a cool way to separate the time leading up to the animation. What do you think? So you haven't seen this in a long, long time. What do you think overall?
I was not prepared for the animation. Because most of the animation we see today, it's like they hold. It's not like, they're constantly moving and talking and stuff. And it was just like, there's so much animation going on.
Yes.
It's almost like an overload of animation. You could even see why, there's animation rules and for pacing and stuff. Because full on rotoscoping movement does not look as good as just actual. If you go back to watch some of the classic Disney animations and stuff, they're not always constantly moving, their eyes are rolling and stuff. It's just they kind of hold the pose because they, just to kind of get the action across kind of thing. But
and just get your attention in certain spots.
Let's talk about this intro though. Let's get into it. If you had to, now obviously production was so much better on the new film, but if you had to pick an opening, do you like this kind of storybook, they're telling it with shadows against a wall kind of feel, the story's being passed on, or did you actually going back and seeing it?
You mean with at the beginning of the Fellowship of the Ring? Mm-hmm. When they're doing the actual War of the Armies? You know what? They're completely different ways of doing things. One of my favorite opens to a film is that Bram Stoker's Dracula, and it does almost exactly what this Lord of the Rings film does. That being said, we can't really, in all honesty, we can't fairly compare these two films because the budget are way different. Yeah, one of the reasons this animated film actually looked worse as it went along in the film is because they started running out of budget. If you notice, the first number of scenes that were painted look great, beautiful watercolors. The animation is really, like Nick said, super fluid. And then as it gets on, it gets choppier and choppier. You start to see spears that are cut off because they're doing luma keys and things like that. So the budget is not fair. And we'll talk about music in a little bit as well. Yeah. But you know what? As far as the openings, I think it just depends on what you're trying to do. If you want to do more of a storybook or you're wanting to do show the people. So I don't prefer one over the other, though obviously production quality wise, one is definitely way different than the other.
But you kind of see how this kind of influenced the film a little bit. I feel like they watched this and got inspired for certain shots. There's this scene that sticks out right away to my head when the Hobbit that has his feet up on the table, and he's foot, they're doing the whole banter. It's the same thing in the animated version. It's almost they were inspired with the way they were kicked back for lax kind of thing, and and they have the feet in the foreground kind of thing. And I was like, oh, it's cool because it feels like it was inspired kind of.
Ralph Bakshi did a few other films. He actually worked with my favorite artist of all time on a film called Fire and Ice. It wasn't a great animated film, but he worked with Frank Frazetta. You know who Frank Frazetta is? Frank Frazetta is my favorite artist of all time. They worked on that together. But I remember when Lord of the Rings was first announced by New Line Cinema, Ralph Bakshi was really kind of upset and offended because Peter Jackson never contacted him just to say, hey, I'm wanting. It's like I remember that when Jack Nicholson said that he talked to Heath Ledger when he was going to do Joker, and just gave him some advice, just like friendly advice. It was just like a cordial interaction, and I guess Ralph Bakshi was taken a little bit aback that no one ever contacted him or told that it was happening or wanted to get his opinions or his experiences. I mean, not that they needed. They obviously went in a completely different direction. But it's kind of interesting to take a look at that from that angle as well.
There also could have been some miscommunication down the line or something too. You never know.
Yeah, of course.
I wasn't there,
they
but
definitely borrow some shots and some compositions. Now, a lot of the shots and compositions in the Lord of the Rings films that I remember are taken from classical artwork. Like there's some great, like the storyboard artists they got and the concept artists they got actually did a lot of illustrations in like the 70s and 60s of Lord of the Rings, and so some of these shots you look at in this animated film and in live action are almost exactly the same,
like the way he disappears and stuff with the ring.
Well, I'm thinking of when they're hiding from the ring wraith under the tree.
Oh, okay. Well, hold on. We're gonna get there.
Sure.
Let's go through the timeline of the film. Okay, so let's talk about Bilbo and the ring. And how it plays off so differently, like how in the film we really see Gandalf do like the darkness, and he's like Bilbo Baggins, and then this is just kind of like, I don't know if it's because the animation's moving like crazy. It feels so kind of loosey goosey, like with everything going on. Like I think there's a part where like Bilbo's like.
Yeah,
talking to Gandalf is like, dude, like, what are you doing? Like, and then he has like a sword, and he's like freaking doing this with the sword. It's just like, calm down, Bilbo, calm down.
You know what though? That does go back to they didn't have a set to interact with, right? They didn't have a built live action bag end that they were acting in. They were probably just
I'm talking about the animation.
And that's what I'm talking about.
Okay.
Because they had nothing. I mean, because all the animation was a lot of it was rotoscoped, right? They took real actors. I mean. It's beautiful because sometimes you see Gandalf's robe and you see all the kind of wisps and movements of it, but at the same time you're limited to the live action animation to a certain extent. And if you don't have sets and you don't have props, and it's like, okay, I'm just going to wave around my sword and walk around because that's all I can think about doing.
That's true. You know what I mean? It's about like that. Yeah. But it's so funny, like how much the characters moving. They're like overacting. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's like they're doing like a live performance on a stage or something like that, like where you do these like big movements. Yeah. Because the people in the back may not be able to see you. So you know what I mean? So when you get shot, you go. You know what I mean? Like that's what they would do. They're like, hey,
I'm not dead yet. Yeah. I'm getting better.
The leg kicks, and that's when they die on stage. They actually have to kick a physical bucket to not. No, okay, that was bad.
That's hilarious.
But anyways, it's so interesting because it's like, and even Gandalf at times he'll be like, and just like so expressive, and it's fun. I love how it's stylized though. Let's talk about some more walk cycles. I love the way I feel like every character has a limp with walk cycles.
They do kind of walk funny, huh? All of them.
They all kind of do like this weird like right hip limp thing. Like they use the same actor for all the walk cycles.
Do you think that was the director because they wanted to get it more of an animated bouncy feel, or what do you think that came across? That's interesting.
I don't know.
Now you say that, almost everybody does have that odd kind of limp. They do have a limp.
Yeah, it's like everyone sways like. Maybe the actor had one leg that was shorter than the other. Or something.
It's not the same person, man. That's true, though. I never thought about that but they all do walk kind of funny.
Oh my gosh, yes, they do. You're like, oh, it's really funny. Okay, so one thing I found interesting was I can't remember what it was in the book, but in the movie Gandalf, the live action, Gandalf can't even touch the ring, right? He's like, oh. And this one he's like, he like flips into the fire
afraid to watch it. Yeah.
And it's just so interesting that like, you know what I mean? Like it doesn't show any fear about the ring at all.
Oh,
you know what I mean? Like,
and you know what? That's one of the main things I feel like they really developed in the films they didn't. So in the animated film, they had finite amount of time. They had finite resources. Like it's almost like they had to check the box. Okay, Bilbo has to give up the ring. Check. We have to see the Balrog. Check. There's the nuances of the acting aren't quite there. And so, for instance, you see Bilbo really struggle, but willfully give up the ring in the actual movie, a live action movie. Whereas In this other one, it's just kind of like, okay, you can tell he doesn't want to give it up, but he just gives it up. Yeah.
But it's kind of just like hitting beats to get to the next scene kind of thing.
And this is going a little bit different direction, but I feel like the biggest thing that makes the animated film kind of feel flat is the music. Like there's not much there. It's almost just quiet with dialogue. Whereas when you have Hans Zimmer or Howard Shore throwing in
boom, 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 boom. You know, like when like different things are coming on, like that cool little rhythms. So good.
And I think that's one of the biggest. And obviously, that's not something that a lot of people think about as a budgetary thing when they're making a film. But if you don't have that, it just it's so much. And I think people realize that. But when you're budgeting for something, a lot of smaller productions don't budget enough for music, or or they just we'll just get stock. Well, if you're doing a legit film, you need originally composed film that times with it correctly too. So that's something I just couldn't get over. I was watching it. It's like the music adds and the lack thereof.
Yeah. And then if you guys do have access to this movie in like a QuickTime file and you can go frame by frame, there's some amazing freeze frames of the like when Gandalf flips the ring into the fire, like Frodo full on goes like like horror face, like you see someone die, and it's just like, oh my gosh, it's so amazing. Like there's so many good, funny. And like if you pause on any of Sam's faces, Sam's always like a bumbling fool, and like the faces they make are just like priceless. They're so good. If you guys get a chance, you have to just go and freeze frame a couple of these.
I honestly wish they had a little bit more budget. So the story that I recall from this, and I may be off, is originally Ralph Bakshi wanted to do 3 films. He's like, this is 3 books. They're long books. They're this needs. And then they said, first the studio said, we want you to do 1 movie with all of it. Like, no. And I think that's why it felt like they were just checking the boxes. They had to get through basically 2 movies in 1 animated film, basically. It was just so much to go through, and I think that's why it had struggled so much. I think that was a complaint. He's like, dude, you guys, you're upset because it didn't perform well, but yet you tied my hands behind my back and said I only have this much freedom.
He must have been really pissed when Peter Jackson was able to do 3 movies for The Hobbit.
A 300-page book. But remember, initially they wanted, I think, Lord of the Rings to be 1 or 2 movies from one of the other earlier studios. I think it was Paramount that initially paid to have them do the script, like greenlit the script, and then they said, we want you to do it in 2 movies or 1 movie, and they said, we can't do that. They said, okay, you can. That's fine. Or maybe it was Miramax, but they said, okay, fine, you can look at other studios. And so that almost even the live action Lord of the Rings is going to be less movies.
That's crazy. Yeah. Dude, there's so many good animation points. When Gandalf like points at Frodo, his hand like freezes for 1 second, but his head's like body still moves, and it's like a weird like how does your body move like that? Kind of like doing a robot dance. And it's so good.
That's
so
funny.
Good. Anyways, if you guys have a chance, I'm just pointing out a couple of different things. I think they're so awesome. And there's that scene too where you have like the bird's eye view in the house. And like it's just like a long scene, and he's like walking around Frodo, and it's just there's so much movement everywhere, which is so much fun to see, because like nowadays it's like limited animation, right? It's all about the dialogue.
Yeah,
a character will just stand there and the mouth is flapping, and this is full on. He's like it's like you don't get that stuff at all.
Yeah, like you said, to some extent it almost overwhelms you, but in other ways you get all the nuances of the performance. So it's really interesting, especially at the beginning of the movie. It kind of falls off as the movie goes along. But yeah, especially at the beginning of the movie. It's just beautiful. At the beginning of the movie, I was like, if the quality was held out all the way through and they didn't have to rush it, it would have been really, really wonderful.
I'm sorry. I just saw Gandalf's walk cycle when he walks into the...
It's like limps. He's like the same as the Ring Wraith.
Oh man, the Ring Wraith. Oh my, I was like crying of laughter where Allie's like, what is so funny? I'm like, I gotta see this. It's like, it takes away the scariness.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it's not even like a dead walk. Like maybe like have a foot drag, not like, like there's like the whole body rotating. It just does not work. Like the hobbits can outrun him so easily. There's no way he's catching them.
You better get back to your horse. Let him get 5 paces away from his horse and then run, because he's not going to get back to the horse in time. But you know what? When he was on the horse and just saw the eyes and the silhouette, I thought that looked cool. Like they had some cool ideas, but when he was actually moving around, it was a little
visually. Fun. I mean, it was fun. Like even seeing the way like the stars was around them, and stuff. Like it's so trippy, but it's cool though because it's very magical and like there are wizards and the powers they have and stuff like that.
Yeah, and it's very time. I mean, this is the type of movie that was made during that time period. You wouldn't get a movie like there's some. I can't even remember the names of some of these movies, but there were some weird, trippy animated films from during that period of time, like a cartoon with showing real Nazis marching footage. I mean, weird. I forgot what some of these movies. If you guys know what I'm talking about, put it in the comments. But some weird animation. But yeah, I mean, it was fun. It just, I think the music was a big thing. Like you said, some of the shots were so long. You see shots in the live action version where Gandalf's looking down at the ring, and then you have a shot of him reaching down towards the ring. Whereas this is just like all one take, one shot.
Yeah,
I think they just had to get it. Yeah, because they probably just had to get it done, and had limited resources.
Very true.
But
now, so
it's
let's
still
compare
a fun piece of history.
The last scene that we have with the ring wraith looking for them over the tree branch stuff. Like it's so intense in the live action, and I like how I like the way they animated like the fear of the characters and stuff in the animation one. But that walk, I can't look at the walk. I can't take that walk seriously. I just can't. Like who approved of this? Or I want to see the reference video.
I know it must have been so hard to do that because again, obviously they use digital set extensions and they're on a sound stage. They're not out in real nature and a lot of times, but they had things to interact with and be afraid of. Whereas this guy was probably just,
we need a creepy walk.
All right, you need to walk on top of the table because we can't build a suspended stage and we just need you to try, you know what I mean? It was probably a lot harder, but yeah, the angle was cool. The framing was cool. And especially you have to remember especially have to remember that you have to remember the aspect ratio is way different. We're doing 4:3, I think, basically in this animated film, and we're getting the nice. Do they shoot 2:3:5 in Lord of the Rings? The really wide.
Yeah, I think it was really wide.
Yeah, so I mean, you have a lot more creative framing and stuff like that, but really, really fun stuff.
But you can tell though, like a couple of the shots look like they were inspired. The animation inspired the original film, like the way they were over and the way it was like crouching over kind of thing, and you got like the close-ups of the rings and it goes back in the pocket. Obviously, like Sam like stops him, which is cool because then you get to see more of Sam's character. Like I think the movie did a good job developing Sam's character. Like in the book, he's kind of like this woohoo. I think like even kind of like this animation where he's kind of like more lighthearted, where in the movie it's like he's like the best character. You know what I mean? Like
but you need that. You cast Sean Astin, you pump him full of food and you get him fat. He's like Peter Jackson. I'm so full. Get Mr. Get Sean Astin some more pie. I remember them saying like he's like, I was so full, uncomfortably full all the time, and Peter Jackson kept making me eat more. But I mean, Sean Astin is one of the greats as far as acting. He really is. I mean, he's had quite a career, and Sam wise was definitely one of his great roles.
Casting for the original film too, spot on.
Oh yeah. Even some of the characters that aren't as big of like obviously Frodo and Sam are front and center, and Gandalf and things like that, but everybody was cast.
Aragorn, everyone. But we're not going to spoil those for you because we'll probably talk about them in the next edition. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. We're going to go through the whole Lord of the Rings. We'll probably get to the Return of the Kings one, but it's kind of weird, right? Because it's like a different director for the Return of the Kings.
Yeah, so this is a little side note, you guys. So if you saw The Hobbit, a certain studio did The Hobbit in a certain style. It was a very unique style. It was like a blend of different like Japanese and American animation styles. Then they did Lord of the Rings, and you had this completely different style, Ralph Bakshi, but they never did Return of the King. That the Lord of the Rings cut off after the Two Towers, basically, and so it was unfinished. And the studio that did The Hobbit was like, hey, one, we're upset you didn't let us do Lord of the Rings, and two, this is still not finished. So they did a Return of the King in that Hobbit style, and I've never seen it.
I know, I haven't either, but we're getting it so we can watch it.
Yeah, so that'll be really fun to watch and talk about that. So we're probably going to go through maybe some more Lord of the Rings animated stuff as well, because there's a lot to talk about. But we'll probably also do Return of the King, the animated one, and jump back to that old style as well, because I'm excited to see that. And then we'll
probably do the Hobbit film, because that's one of my favorites growing up. Like the songs in the Hobbit films are so much fun. That's what Bilbo Baggins hates.
So Nick has an LP, the record of the soundtrack, and it was so cool. And I borrowed it and I scanned all the images because there's some really cool artwork, and it's just really, really cool. So yeah, we're both big fans of the Hobbit animated film, so we'll definitely get to that in one of these as well. So
Smog. Come on. Anyways, we'll save it for another
time.
Favorite
dragon. Oh, yeah. Sorry, we're getting all excited. All right, guys. So hopefully you're having fun. If you haven't seen Lord of the Rings by Ralph Bakshi, definitely rent it. You're not going to like it as much as the live action, but you're going to have a fun time, and you're going to get it out. You're going to get some chuckles, but you're also going to say there's some cool stuff. Yes. We didn't talk about the Balrog, but you got a funky looking Balrog. We're going to talk about other. Yeah, we will.
We will.
There's some really cool takeaways from that. So rent it, and then when we get in the other episodes, you'll know exactly what we're talking about. You can leave more comments down. Let us know what you're thinking as well. So check out asart.space for all the audio and video links that we have and any other information we post on there. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you on the next AsArt.